Hey guys, hello and welcome to this episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons. I am your host for today, Danielle Johnston. I am one of the owners of Next Generation Gym Owners All-Star Cheer Consulting Company, where we will help you develop a profitable, fun program to run that has great retention and has happy families in the gym. On top of that, for the last 13 years, I've owned Twister Sports in Warrensburg, Missouri. Very small town. We've got a little bit of everything, including, tumbling, cheerleading, gymnastics, Ninja Warrior, dance, batting cages, birthday parties, private lessons, open gym. I could go on and on, but for the sake of time, I will kind of leave it at that. So I am excited to be here with you guys. If you have listened to the last couple of podcasts, a little bit congested, had the flu, so hopefully you guys can't hear it too much in my voice still. But man, I know I'm not the only one because we had kids out for weeks and weeks in the gym and it was competition day. I was like, man, my throat is like starting to feel itchy, but I don't know if it's just because it's so dry in Missouri or what it is. And so luckily I had some like cough drops with me that were they sit in my competition bag. And throughout the day, I found that I was needing more and more of them. And that night, I just went down. And we're about 2 weeks out from it now, and I still am just not 100%. So I have talked to dozens of gym owners through the Next Gen Academy. And one thing I know for sure is I am not the only one that is dealing with this. Not only do you guys probably have some coaches that have been out this season, maybe you yourself, but I guarantee you've had some athletes who have been dealing with just that gross flu or cough or cold or whatever. Today, I am going to talk I'm going to ping a little bit off an episode that Dan Cotton did on the Cheer Biz podcast, kind of our sister episode here from the Next Generation Gym Owners. He recently did an episode that was in regard to coaching senior teams and why he just loves coaching the older age groups and some effective strategies for doing that. Well, one of the reasons that I think I've been sick is because I get a lot of hugs because this season I do coach a U17 team and I do coach a junior prep team. But in addition to that, I coach a mini team and I haven't done that in about 12 years. In fact, I don't think I've coached a mini team since probably our first year of cheer. So this year, and I'm a pretty disciplined person. Those of you who know me, I spent 7 years in the Air Force. The Air Force did not make me who I am. I was kind of already pretty disciplined and pretty firm, very type A before I went in the military. And the military was honestly just sort of the right fit for me because of my personality. So this season, when I said, I kind of want to coach a mini team, my business partner and our gym manager and some of our coaches looked at me like I was crazy. And you know what? I felt a little crazy at moments throughout the summer, but I will tell you, it has been one of my favorite seasons. I think when I had little kids of my own, I wasn't as thrilled with coaching that age group because I just felt like I spent day and night and all day and weekends and everything around little kids, and I needed to be able to be around different age groups. But now that my youngest is freshman in high school, I truly, truly love coaching the littles. And so today I'm going to ping off of why I enjoy coaching them and some strategies. We do teach this class sometimes at conferences. We teach coaching tinies and minis. So I'm not going to give you the play the games and, do this at practice and this is how to clean them. I'm not really going to give you that. I'm going to give you more of this is how I lead this age group as a team and some of the tips that I have found that are very unique to coaching this age group versus my juniors and senior age groups. Okay, so let's get into it. First off, if you are going to coach a mini team, my gosh, you guys, be okay with hugs. You have to be. By nature, I am not a hugger.
Stay away, or I'll eat it.
I am not typically seeing other adults and being so excited to see them that I'm hugging them. I may be extremely excited to see them. I'm just, again, kind of grew up in a military family. I'm not a big hugger. However, if there is one thing I know, it is that minis are going to hug their coaches. And I actually liked it. Like, I love it. They do it because this age group, like, they live with their emotions. They are driven by these emotions. So not only be okay with hugs, but be okay with some big emotions at times. The good thing is, because I've had my own kids, 4 of my own kids at this age group before, I think I was able to recognize those big emotions as, solitary moments in time. We did dream camp last summer, and these are long days. Like, we're starting, I think breakfast is at like 7:30 in the morning. We're ending at 9 o'clock at night. And this is like half day on day 0, and then full day 1, day 2, day 3, half day on day 4. And they stay overnight in the dorms. And some of our minis, like, this was a local camp for us. So some of our minis, their parents picked them up and dropped them off. But about half of my team stayed in the dorms overnight with like our chaperones. It was definitely something. Like, I kind of joked, and I told their parents later, and I can say this because the parents know that I like really love these kids. But I kind of told their parents, I'm like, yeah, I don't know about full day next year. Your kids were really mean in the afternoons. And it's not that they were mean. It's that they had like these huge emotions, and you would try to get them to go up in a prep, and you would just see tears filling their eyes in the afternoons because they were tired, and, they needed snuggles because mom snuggles them every night or every morning, and they didn't have mom there. And so it was kind of a really fun, like, maternal moment for me because I was able to kind of give them that role that they needed, to the point that we went to lunch one day, and I had this little girl that she had been saying, oh, my stomach just hurts. Like, I have a tummy ache. And we go to lunch one day, and I go over to her table. Instead of lunch, she has chocolate ice cream and a cookie and a brownie. And I'm like, Emma, yeah, you can't have any of that. I'm going to go get your lunch for you. And so, like, guys, if you have your 18, 19-year-olds who are coaching this age group, you might find it challenging at times, because I didn't mind stepping into that role because I have had 4 kids at this age before. But I can see how an 18 or 19-year-old coaching this age group may find that challenging. In fact, my 14-year-old was my assistant coach, my daughter. We've never coached together before. She, at her age, does not have that maternal instinct yet. So she would come to me and be like, well, of course her stomach hurts. She's not eating, anything healthy. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go take that food away from her and give her something. And if she eats the healthy food, then she can have that. So anyway, it's just know that can be a challenge if you have a younger coach coaching this age group. They need that safe, affectionate feeling. And I know that gets tricky, right? The word affection, when we're talking about coaching children, can be a little creepy at times, right? And so, of course, there is that line. My male coaches, I will tell you, he's now 19, but my son coached minis last year. He was not a fan of the hugs. He was very awkward when little girls would come hug him. And so he taught them high fives and fist bumps and stuff like that. That's still a level of affection that's appropriate with these athletes. Find what that level is for you, but make sure that they feel that, because these kids are still at that age group where they're used to the snuggles. And you can just quote me on that. One day there's going to be a quote from this podcast that says they're used to the snuggles. Okay. Number 2, find their limits early on. I have been doing, if you listen to the last episode, I've been doing benchmark assessments lately, and it's kind of an all-star report card where we sit down and say, are you below level, at level, or exceeding level for what I would expect for this age division and level? And I get it. Like, on a score sheet, judges should be scoring senior level 1 and tiny level 1 with the same execution of jumps. But realistically, I have different expectations for even my junior 1 prep team versus my mini prep team on levels of execution and cleanliness. Very different expectations. And so I tell the parents on this all-star report card, essentially, I'm judging you at what I would expect at this level. So are you below what I would expect? Are you at my expectation, or are you exceeding my expectation? One of the conversations I had with a parent this week, because I gave her daughter an at level, I said, she actually is above level on difficulty, but I'm going to give her at level for execution. And it's because we still are not pointing our toes 100% of the time. Our arms are not by our ears in our back walkovers. Our switch legs are not always landing with feet together down at the bottom, getting ready for that backwards roll. And so, some of these things are just not there. And I saw the girl kind of look at her mom and I said, so I think I know what you're thinking. And let me address this. Does every kid on your team have perfectly, straight knees, pointed toes, blah, blah, blah? No, they don't. But if you feel like I'm really on you, it's because you're doing handsprings. You can do a back handspring by yourself as an 8-year-old. I'm going to be stricter on you on your switch leg back walkovers than I would be on a kid who just got her back walkover. And so I said, I'm expecting your 100%. And every kid, their 100% looks a little bit different. So if you feel like this Susie over here has super bent knees and flexed feet, why aren't you on her? Why are you on me? I only have, my toes are a little bit not pointed. It's because I know what each kid is capable of. And that's a good conversation to have with this parent's age group at the beginning of the season. Because while your older kids will probably understand that, your little kids are looking across the board. Oh, I'm one of the stronger tumblers. I'm the only kid on this team with a back handspring. Why would she say anything to me about my back walkovers? I hit it 100% of the time, and that kid doesn't even hit it all the time. Right? And so they don't totally understand that that level of expectation is different based on what they're capable of. So that's a conversation that I have with parents. And in hindsight, I will have that conversation more frequently throughout the season. It's important that you guys are learning their limits. Thankfully for us, Dream Camp really taught me what their limits are. How many hours can they go? Do we need to break up practices certain ways? We probably can't do 45 minutes of stunting at one time. On the Let's Talk to Your podcast, Jason Larkins talked about memory recall. And when you're trying to teach kids counts and when you're trying to teach them muscle memory, we need to do something for 15 or 20 minutes, walk away for 15 or 20 minutes, and then come back to it. And that's how we're teaching that muscle recall and memory recall and muscle memory. It's helpful because you need to learn what the limits of the team are. So if our pyramid is not hitting and after 15 minutes, it's still not working, I have some teams that I can push an extra 10 minutes and say, okay, we're close though. Let's keep going. And I have other teams that I can't. In fact, I have some athletes that I can do that with. And I have other athletes that will kind of continue to go downhill because, they're getting just too in their heads about it. And so learn what your athlete's limits are early on and do your best. If you've got a huge team, hopefully you've got multiple coaches that can sort of divvy up the athletes and take them under their wing. Because if I had a team of 28, I'm going to divvy up the kids in that stunt group and that stunt group are kind of yours. You need to make sure they're good. You need to help me figure out what are their limitations. Lucky for me, that particular team has 13. And so it's a little bit easier for me to say, okay, I know what Madison's limitations are versus, Haley. I know what those limitations are because I only have 13 on this team and I coach them 4 hours a week. Next up, communicate with parents and ask their parents for advice. Now, I don't necessarily mean ask their parents, how do we get their jumps higher, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is it's not beyond me to go to a parent and say, I've really tried to get her on focus and we've been working on this for quite a while. But what I'm finding is she gets really unfocused and she kind of spaces out during portions of practice. And then when I ask her to recall the counts, she can't remember them. Can you help me? What have you seen that works for her? Whether it's in school or at home or other sports, do you have some tips for me that would help me with that? I think there are too many coaches in our industry who are too prideful to ask parents for help. Realistically, I can tell you as a parent, I know my kids better than any coach that has ever coached them. And that's from a couple of kids who are gym rats. They have literally lived in the gym, but I still know my kids better. And so if a coach came to me and said, this has happened over the years, but if a coach came to me and said, she's talking, she's distracted, she's unfocused, or she's giving attitude, she's doing this, what tips can you give me to better manage that with her? That would be the best because I can help coaches understand what works for my child and what doesn't. For one of my kids, it was positive incentives. For the other two, it was, you're going to give push-ups because they hate doing push-ups. And if you give them push-ups, they're going to get some energy out and get more focused and not want to do push-ups again. But for another one, it's going to be, hey, you're going to get a sticker for staying focused, right? That wouldn't have worked for two of mine. So communicate with parents early on so that you can learn what are a child's triggers, What are their motivators? And what do they naturally struggle with? This year, I actually did a little bit of a questionnaire for our parents early in the season that just said, tell me more about your child. What motivates them? What are their goals for this season? How can I be the best possible coach to them? I was able to learn more about the kids from reading those. And then I was able to kind of know from there what to look for in an athlete, right? You don't want them to get to the point of tears before you learn, okay, I couldn't push them quite that far, or the way that I pushed them was a trigger for them and then I lost them the rest of practice. Define what each athlete's 100% looks like. So as we talked about, I've got different kids with different levels of skill, and each athlete's 100% looks a little bit different. I will have Aubrey who comes to practice and she gives 100%, but Aubrey may not be 100% focused all the time. She may not remember what count we dip on, but I know that I have her 100% because I can see it in her eyes. She's trying so hard to memorize. She's trying to think about it. And her 100% is saying, Coach Danielle, can we do it again? Or when I say, does anybody need to go over counts again? And Aubrey raises her hand. That's her 100% to me. Whereas I have other athletes, I'll give an example here. I have another athlete who she's fully capable. She's a crossover on 2 teams. She does hip hop as well. Fully capable of knowing her counts. Very good memory when it comes to that stuff. Very skilled and talented athlete. And so when I say, hey, what number do we dip? What number do we hit our high V? If she can't recall that, typically I know that it's because she has zoned out for a period of time and she's not quite giving me her 100% effort in that moment. And so it's very different across the board on what that looks like for athletes. And I don't know if you guys find this hard as a coach, but I try not to chastise athletes for not knowing their counts too much because I think it prevents them from asking what the count is when they truly don't know. Now, on my senior level teams, do I get pretty frustrated when it's January and I'm like, what count do we dip? And nobody can answer, or I get 3 wrong answers? Oh yeah, I get pretty frustrated because we're putting people in the air and it gets dangerous. At the same time, I have to find that balance of okay, maybe that's the case, but I also want athletes to be willing to ask, okay, Coach Danielle, what count do we dip? I'm confused. This isn't hitting. What count am I supposed to dip on, right? And if they don't know it, I need them to ask. So as a coach, just know that everybody's 100% looks different and be cautious of that. I hate to continue using the word chastising, but be cautious about being too tough on kids about certain things because you want them to be comfortable enough to ask. Define what type of season it is early on. Okay. I am a pretty competitive person. In fact, I like to win everything. If it's a contest of Jeopardy, we're sitting there and I'm watching Jeopardy, I want to win. Okay. If it's who can fold this laundry faster, it's me. I want to win. I don't know. There's just something in my body that I just am competitive about everything. When I have a team like I did this year and they're little and they all came from prep, I don't think I have a single athlete that, was on an elite team last year. They're very young. They had good tumbling skills, but they didn't have to really stunt at this level. I had to really learn what type of season it was going to be early on. We are doing our best to win. There are certain competitions we do really, really well. There's other competitions that 2 competitions ago, I taught my kids how to count. We spent all this time focused on counting for yourselves. Right? I need you to count for yourselves because you're not always going to hear me at competitions. You're not always going to be able to see me. And I'm going to tell you, all 12 of them counted for themselves. 2 of them were on the right count. The other 10, by God, they were counting. And so it was kind of like an act of God. They hit every single stunt, but none of our timing was on anything else. But our stunts hit, which I told them, and I told the parents, I'm in 13 years of coaching All-Star, I just don't know that I've ever had a team that many people were off on counts, and for whatever reason, we still hit our stunts. So that's cool. But then we came down and we were still on our own count. This season for us has had to be a growing season. My minis are growing. They are learning how to cheer. I met with the parents after our last competition because I do a score sheet meeting, and I do it differently with the kids and then with the parents at this age group. I'm pretty pretty short on my meetings with the kids and just kind of let them know, hey, here are the things that we're going to be working on based on what the judges said. And here are some of the great things the judges loved. When I meet with the parents, though, it's a lot more in depth. And some of those conversations look like this. Hey, parents, we were all counting. That's awesome. It was by the grace of God we hit our stunts. So now these next couple of weeks, I'm not going to count anymore. I need them to count and I need them to catch a rhythm. We're going to figure out how to catch the rhythm of the music every time, whether it's our music or one of our, sister team's music, because it's really important that they understand how to keep that beat even while they are doing their routine. And I want them to hear for the sound effects and stuff like that too. And they need Coach Danielle to not be the one counting then. So those are some of the conversations. I also, I'm having those with the parents saying, while it's important that we are focused on making our routine more difficult so these kids continue to feel challenged and they don't get bored, we are also having to continue building their technique. Our ankles have to be perfectly together in cradles. Our bases have to dip together every time. Our bases have to use their legs when they're dipping. Our flyers need to hit that tight body position every time. We need to not be twisted. We don't want to do an eighth of a turn by accident in our cradles. Like, I had the conversation with the parents where I said, we need to find the balance. And by making it slightly more difficult when we're kind of coming in second and third right now, and we're not coming in first, by making it more difficult, I'm not going to promise you that we're going to start coming in first. But I also am going to play that balance for you this season of we need to get our technique down and I need to continue challenging your kids because some of these kids will not be minis much longer. So we need to do that and do that now. And the parents were incredibly understanding of that. They understand that we may not win every competition. We may not win a lot of competitions this season, but I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the athletes long term, which is cleaning their technique at this level, but finding small ways to continue to challenge them, even if our technique is not perfect, because I need these kids to still be excited about cheerleading. An example of that is in our pyramid. We have 2 pyramids in our routine. The first one, it's 3 groups. They're all in preps. They're connected. My middle group goes up to extension. They all used to go down to smush. Middle group would go back up to prep, and my 2 outside groups would go to lib. It was not that hard to change it to 2 outside groups go up to arabesque instead. It adds a quarter turn. It allows us to quarter smush back down afterwards. And I was able to teach, hey, we've got to lift those arabesques. They've got to be equal. We have to do a dip and a quarter turn in pyramid now. Was our pyramid scoring perfect? No, it wasn't scoring perfect on technique. It was good. It wasn't excellent. It wasn't like perfect scores, but it still found that good balance of like, hey, we can do it pretty well. Like, I still think we'll score pretty well in it, but also I can add this level of difficulty of fundamental level 1 skills, right? They're not crazy creative that's going to win them tons of stuff, but these are fundamental skills because they're minis and they're probably going to be level 1 again next year. Okay. And then the last one, drill the fundamentals. Find fun ways to drill the fundamentals with this age group because they're going to be doing preps the rest of their cheer career forever. So those bases need to know how to hold preps together. Get those elbows together. Don't rest it on your chest. When I was a kid, I would use my face to base. Like if I felt like you were leaning, I wasn't good at like using my wrists to twist and like get my elbows together. And so I would like use my cheek and I would like push the base a little bit or the flyer a little bit. It's because we didn't drill the fundamentals when I was a kid. This week, I took my minis, I put up their 2 preps, I had them face one another, and we practiced cradling. And we watched each other while we cradled. And we checked for ankles, and we checked for tight hollow positions, and we checked for bases reaching high and catching with their legs in that squat position, and like a whole bunch of different things that we checked for. And I tried to make a game out of it. It was okay, you guys are going to cradle and you're going to cradle at the exact same time. Let's see if we can do it, right? They cradle in the same time in their routine, but they don't face each other. So I just changed it a little bit. A couple of months ago, when we just needed to get better at moving in prep with our hands on our hips, I had my flyers grab a ball and they had to hold this like beach ball the entire time they moved. The beach ball, they couldn't hold it with one hand. They had to keep 2 hands on it. And it simulated what it would be like if they had their hands on their hips and they were moving in prep. We moved panel by panel and did a whole cheer floor of moving in prep. At this point, I want them to be able to move they've got one hand down connected on the ground for a scale. Other one is actually in that scale position. And I want them to be able to move in it. And so we're going to start in lib, and we're just going to walk the floor in libs and see if we can hold it. Can we keep our toe connected, and our lib lifted? Can we stay locked out? Can we keep our hips tight? So there are certain things like that when I'm saying drill the fundamentals. Like, you don't have to do your routine skills over and over and over. Walk in a lib, walk in a prep, practice your cradles facing each other, practice them separately, put them on video and see if they can do them at the exact same time. Can they say something on that dip count so that they know if they were all on the right count? Find those drills that work for them. I know I'm going to say my junior team, but this is something I would do with my minis. We just haven't had an issue with our extension. But like my junior prep team, they were really struggling because their extension in pyramid it's a junior level 1.1 prep. Their extension was going crooked. One base was pushing against the other base the way she should, and the other one wasn't pushing against. I said, hey, we've got to practice this disconnected because you guys need to be able to feel it without that bracer. And that's absolutely something I would do with my minis. We've done single leg stunts without the connection on the ground during practice because I just want them to practice the fundamentals. If you can do a single leg stunt, like a level 2 essentially stunt, then by the time you connect to someone on the ground, you're going to be really great at it. So drill the fundamentals, do it in repetition. I'm going to echo what Jason said on that Let's Talk to Your podcast. Do it for 20 minutes, walk away for 20 minutes, come back to it. Do the muscle memory and the memory recall on those. Make it fun. Okay, you guys. So you tell me, this is not something I have taught before because I hadn't taught minis in a long time. I didn't tell you do the games, do the blocks, do the, Candyland, play this and that. I didn't tell you guys that stuff because you can get all that great info at our conferences. But I gave you a lot of things that you can do that involve parents, right? Because I don't, like my U17 parents, I think I do a good job communicating with them. I don't necessarily give them updates every week the way that I do with my minis because their parents are just so much more involved still at this 6 to 8 year old age range. So if you guys have some things that have worked really well, definitely let me know. I would love to hear about them. Think about if you're coaching a mini team, what are you doing and how can you do it better? How can you better communicate with parents, set their expectations at the beginning of the season, be firm but nurturing? What kind of things can you do better with this age group? All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me this week. If you guys are not in our Facebook group and you are a gym owner, head over to Facebook and join the Cheer Gym Owners Facebook group. If you are a coach or an owner who also coaches, make sure that you join All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners in the Facebook group. If you're an owner, definitely make sure you join both because we've got different info in each of those and you need it. Okay. And then if you are looking for an opportunity to get more training, not just like this, but hands-on training, spotting, drills, all the tumbling stuff, all the stunting stuff, and then even some great leadership classes. In the past, we've done how to teach or how to effectively coach tinies and minis, and we've done the more on the floor kind of strategies. Stuff like that is all taught at our Next Gen conferences. So head over to ngconferences.com, take a look at our summer conference this June in Dallas, and get registered because some of those sessions, especially our Friday sessions, are super limited. And I think one of them is already halfway sold out, and we put this out a week ago. So don't delay in that. Make sure you get over and get registered for that. And with that, you guys, I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining.